Welcome home, friends. I'm Tanya Long, and this is Reset, where purpose meets possibility. Each week, we share conversations with thought leaders, innovators, and the dreamers and doers who are reshaping the future of work, technology, longevity, and purpose. Whether you're navigating AI's impact, reimagining your career, or searching for deeper meaning, you're in the right place. So settle in, open your mind, and let's explore what happens when purpose meets possibility. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Reset, where purpose meets possibility. So, what happens when a corporate project manager trades billion-dollar implementations for a mission to help small businesses thrive? Well, let's talk about it today. On this episode of Reset, we explore the power of small, intentional changes with Lisa Talbot, my new friend and the founder of True North PM Solutions. From managing corporate transformations to helping entrepreneurs streamline their operations, Lisa's journey shows how technical expertise can be reimagined to serve a deeper purpose. So join us for an inspiring and I think it will be fun conversation about finding your true north, about the impact of small changes, and how corporate experience can be transformed into meaningful entrepreneurship. So whether you're feeling stuck in a corporate role or seeking ways to grow your small business, I think Lisa's story offers practical wisdom for navigating change while staying true to your values. Lisa, welcome. I am so excited to have you here, the founder of True North. What a great name. You have like 15 plus years of corporate project management expertise. And what I love is it's across all verticals. You've worked at agriculture, insurance, nonprofits, major conglomerates like Walmart. Um, you bring technical acumen and human understanding to process improvement. Tell me what it's like working with smaller businesses after you've spent so much time working on large projects.
Yeah, thanks, Tanya. Thanks for having me here today. I'm really excited about our conversation, and um, there's a lot to be learned from big corporations to small businesses. There's been a lot of carryover that I didn't anticipate um, from from kind of that corporate life to my own fur. And I'm a lifelong learner, and it's been really bringing me joy to continue to learn about and navigate these small businesses while still having the tools that I gained in corporate America and helping small businesses that wouldn't have had this viewpoint or have acumen that I've been able to bring to them to really have them focused on what brought them to their business to begin with. A lot of people go into business not thinking they need to know IT, which in today's world, probably you can't get away from
No.
systems and computers. And so they get really boggled and frustrated and burnt out having to navigate that space. And so it feels good when I can come in and kind of take that burden off of their shoulders and have them really focus on um, why they got into business in the first place.
I love it. I appreciate that what you do allows them to operate inside their zones of genius, right?
Mhm.
Someone who started a business, most often is passionate about what they're doing, but there are so many things beyond our passions that it takes to make a business run. That IT
Oh,
backbone
yeah.
is and
Hmm.
I remember, I mean, I'm pretty good with tech and I'm pretty good with visuals, but I remember it breaking me into tears when I was trying to do like one of my first websites because I was just trying to move an image a quarter of an inch, to get it off the edge of the screen. And I spent an hour doing it and I've scrapbooked and I've launched hundreds of products and I couldn't move the image. And I thought, I will never get this hour back. And all the research I have done to figure that out will never be knowledge I will apply again. That's one of my challenges is I'm a do-it-yourself farm girl. So I feel challenged in paying for other people's time when it's taken out of my
Mhm.
grocery or shoe money. So hats off to you for helping find those smaller businesses without the expertise. You've talked about how there's so much, you use the word carryover, and I like that because there really is. The largest businesses have learned so much. Um, you were doing, I think, like multi-million dollar implementations. So, given that you've worked with by now several small companies, I'm curious what first helped you recognize the need for change with yourself after 15 years of working in corporate? What led to the change?
Yeah, I think it's, I think it was happening behind the scenes, and I didn't know it if I was to, like, 20 hindsight is 2020. And so I think it was really, dropping my daughter off at daycare and crying all the way into the office, and then spending 15 minutes in the bathroom trying to get myself presentable to get to work. That really was the change that this, and I really felt like there was only two pathways. There was a corporate pathway and there
Mhm.
was a stay-at-home mom pathway. And I didn't feel like I fit in either one of those pathways.
Mhm.
And but it took me, 5 years to understand that I could create my own pathway, and or I could, it's not even my own pathway. Millions of people have done this, before me, have created, their own businesses or their own way of,
Yeah.
making money and supporting their family. And but I think it just took me some time. I have risk management, right? As a project manager, I evaluate all the risks and I look
Right.
at it from a different lens. And so I think it was, probably just in the last year or two that I said, like, I had been thinking about all the risks of doing it. And I thought, what is the risk of not doing it?
Oh,
Which
all of
really
these.
was like
Right.
the change that was like, if I don't do this, if I go in one of these two paths, I wouldn't be really true to myself and I wouldn't be showing up as the person and the mom and the wife that I really wanted to be. And
Yeah.
so that was kind of the moment that I thought, okay, how can I carve this own pathway to for myself, and that brings me joy. And I think that's probably um, been the surprise piece in my risk management. It wasn't ever about
Yeah.
joy, right? It was about
Mhm.
what could I do? What could I make money at? And so I ended up adding, what do I enjoy doing? What am I good at? And what can I make money? And that was where
Yeah.
kind of the Venn diagram came together, and what I've been moving forward with since.
I don't wanna minimize what you've done, but you're right that I think you said millions of people have made this transition, but I think there are tens of millions more who want to make the transition and will be in the coming years. You know, you and I spoke in a separate conversation about the impact of AI on the workforce
Hmm.
and and that's actually why I have this podcast because I think there are changes in the workforce paradigm coming for all of us and I want people to get comfortable with it, to get comfortable with change, to know they can do it. So you're actually the perfect guest because you already made that transition and you can help other people understand that it is while scary and, uncertainty is harder than tough times lots of times, but but you can help people understand that it's doable in a very relatable way. You've been in this 5 years now, I think. So what what do you know now that you wish you had understood sooner before you made the transition?
Yeah, I think my firm's been open for just a year. So it took me
Oh,
about 5 years to
okay.
figure out
Thank
what I needed to do, since that crying moment in the car.
yes, yes.
A letter to my younger
Oh,
self would be, um, that there's really no right or wrong way to do it. Like, I felt like I was doing all the right things, like I was going up the corporate ladder. I was, um, able to get on board. I felt like I was doing all the right things, but it didn't feel right. And I feel like if I would have known that previously, that I should do more what feels good versus what I think should be done, I probably would have landed in a different spot,
Okay.
now. But and then maybe having the confidence. I still, have that imposter syndrome that is like, am I going to get another client? Am I going to,
Mhm.
am I going to transform their work and they're going to be proud of the work that I did, So a lot of imposter syndrome that I still battle today, but it's just those like, um, small iterative steps that I can take myself, like through, it's kind of what my firm is about, is just making small changes. And I try to do that personally as well. Is, what is one step that I can do today to maybe find a client, maybe
Mhm.
to have that, imposter syndrome kind of go away. So it's iterative. So I think other people could definitely start small and, if they're feeling stuck, is to, mindset is a lot of what I think I just talked about with my confidence and my
Yeah.
imposter syndrome. And then, try experiments. Do you like doing a different project? Can you
Nice.
do a
Mhm.
class in it? Can you, while you're in your current job, so you don't have to do this huge, like, burn what you're doing right now down to the ground. You can kind of experiment and be iterative on it and say, I'm going to learn a new skill or get a certificate, or maybe I'm going to do a side hustle. Maybe I'm going to,
Mhm.
see if my
Agree.
passion really is marketable. Um, so I think it's doable. I think it's just having the confidence and maybe just like baby steps to see if you can, if that income can now take over for, your main income.
Mhm. There's a there's an old, adage about change is the only constant.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think that we all academically understand that's true, yet we resist it. And I think
Mhm,
so many people, they know better, but they see change as permanent. If I do
mhm,
X, then I'm gonna be stuck with X. So I just can't, I just can't
mhm,
take that leap when it's not a leap. To your point, it's an experiment. It's a tiny step. It's evaluating whether something else works.
mhm,
And so I think your words are wise, not to like wrap so much around the change. Just try new things.
mhm.
Um, I know in our corporate work, um, that's not something that's taught often. We talk about failing fast, but that's garbage. Oh, it should succeed fast or else. Nobody
Yeah.
believes that you get to fail
Mhm,
fast. And I've worked for wonderful leaders who still weren't very patient with the failing. They weren't very like, "Oh, good,
mhm.
we figured out that doesn't work." I've
Yeah.
never, and I've always kept that in mind when I'm leading program level work because, you do need to lean into things that are difficult or unusual
Mhm,
in order to make headway on things that are remarkable. And sometimes those aren't meant to work, but you learn from them and bring that into play
yeah.
elsewhere. Um, are there any lessons from corporate that you've had to push back and battle because working with smaller businesses is a different it's a different mindset, it's a different approach.
It is different. It's a different mindset. It's a different approach, but it's almost like it's just smaller, really, right? Like there's
Yeah.
a lot of things that um, small businesses and corporates have in common. It's just the scale is much smaller. Um, you know, uh, Small businesses have done awesome work to get themselves here. Like
Yes.
they
Yes.
understand their business inside and out. And so, but they also understand there's a pain point, but it is so narrow focused that they don't understand what's like upstream and downstream from that pain point.
Mhm.
And I think from corporate, that was very similar, right? You change one thing, one division changes one thing, and they don't realize that it actually impacts, all these other divisions that they don't even speak to, right? So,
That's my life.
so
Yeah.
so there's a lot of those pieces that you could relate right back into small businesses, or nonprofits, and
Yeah.
it's just on a smaller scale of what we're dealing with, and
Hmm.
so
Yeah.
I definitely continue to learn and grow. And also I'm like, oh yeah, I remember doing that in corporate that one time.
Hmm.
Like that was hard, but we worked through it. And so that can kind of give me the confidence that I need in the small business to
Yes.
say, hey, I know this is hard.
Hmm.
Um, and I think the other thing you were mentioning too was just like change is inevitable. But I think it's hard when you're making decisions too, of like, if I make this decision, I have to stick with it, right? It's like, no, you don't have to stick with it. Actually, you can change it at any point. And I've had to learn that even now, every time I make a decision, it's like the weight of the world is on that decision. And then I think, oh, I mean, if it goes wrong or if it goes sideways, I can always come back and make a different decision and see if that works. Or maybe the timing's different and that same decision
That's
works
right.
better now.
That is so wise. In my work leading leaders and in my work in corporate, what I saw was that indecision was the greatest failure inside company leadership.
Mm,
It wasn't
mhm,
executing poorly. And I know because I've sat in the chair that those decisions all have consequences and impacts. There's going to be real people impacted and real people not happy on both sides of the decision. And that causes a lot of paralysis. I mean, in the Bay Area, there are some very notable examples where CEOs of massive companies have just sat on things because of the fear of the impact of what those decisions meant to the business.
mhm,
And I think it's a much bigger flaw to not make a decision because when the entire company's kind of being held hostage, trying to decide
mhm,
how we're going to restructuring is a lot of what I've been involved with. So those decisions are consequential and difficult. But
mhm,
having thousands of people kind of waiting for a shoe to drop paralyzes your entire company. And so I
mhm,
want to go back to that imposter syndrome thing that you mentioned. Um, people have started saying for 2 years now, they've been saying that's not the right words. Fine. People have been saying, I've seen very fierce women say, I don't understand imposter syndrome. I've never had imposter syndrome. That's well and fine. Good for them. I think that a lot of people, imposter syndrome is as simple as I've not been here before. I've not done
mhm,
this in quite this situation before. And I care about the impact of what I create. And so I hesitate and I question, should I be doing this? Um, I think we have to, as leaders, I can imagine you coming from a corporate mindset into a smaller business mindset. And we want to be careful to help our clients avoid imposter syndrome.
mhm,
When I work with smaller clients, having been in, 5, 6, $7 billion companies, I don't want to lead with, I know it all because I've been in multi-billion-dollar companies and, your ARR is a fraction. So I feel like I spend a lot of my time building people up in order for them to be the best selves they can be for their business. Have you experienced that with your transition and with helping leaders understand your value and know that you're looking at them and not at just your history?
Yeah, that's really powerful. And the way that you're saying it, I don't think I would have looked back and said yes right away.
Yeah.
I think when you were saying, I was like, I don't think that's what I'm doing. But the more that I've been thinking about it, just from you asking that, is, um, yeah, I definitely go in as like, I am not the expert here. I might have seen some
Mhm.
things. And I think that's the beauty of, you know, of going into new industries. Small businesses can range. My client list has ranged from authors to doggy daycares to
Yeah.
franchise owners. So it's
Yes.
never the same
Right.
piece. And when I was in corporate, it was like, okay, we want to implement this new system, and it was like, okay, let me talk to this person, and it was
Mhm.
it
Right.
wasn't cookie cutter, but it was very similar from one project to the next.
Mhm.
Whereas this is could be a big overhaul of
Mhm.
implementing, a SaaS solution for
Yes.
the business owner, or it's, streamlining some apps that they already have that aren't talking together. So I
Yes.
think,
Mhm.
I think with just knowing that it's new every time, I'm almost organically showing that I'm here to learn. And I do, part of my process is actually learning the business too, because some of my failure initially on was that they would say, this is the problem. This is what I need help
Oh,
with. And I'd say,
right.
okay. And we tackle that one problem. And even though in my head, I was like, oh, I bet it's a huger problem, but I'm going to make
Mhm.
them happy first
Good.
and, really focus on this. And it's kind of bit me because it's like, oh no, it's actually, we got to take a step back and kind of look at the whole process and look at
Yes.
how the
Yes.
business is operating.
Mhm.
Um, and so if it is like a physical, like in the dog daycare, I
Mhm.
did, kind of work as a attendant, and asked a bunch of questions
To
and
learn.
saw,
Yes.
yeah, to learn, and saw their sticky notes and, tried to understand what their business was. And so, and then even when we were doing, a current state analysis, I was just kind of the note taker. They were telling me everything,
Yeah.
and just saying, and, when they did things, it was like, oh, that's so awesome. Like, so I guess I was building them up because I was like,
Mhm.
gee, like I'm learning
Mhm.
too. And I'm like, oh, it's genius. How did you think of that? Um, so I do think it is that it's that relationship building. It's that, building them up that, yes, they might have a problem, but they have all these other things that are working for them, or that,
Yeah.
um, that they might even not even notice either, right? Like they're
Mhm.
heads down trying to keep their business afloat. They don't realize like some of the good things that they're bringing. And so when I step in and I'm able to even like pinpoint all the great things that they're doing, I think that is a feather in their cap and is
Yeah.
building them up. Um, so I hope that I'm helping them with their imposter
I know that
syndrome.
you are. I
Um,
know that you are. There was an article, I think it was a McKinsey article about a year and a half ago, and it made me cringe when I saw the title, because the title was something to the effect of why every company moving forward should operate like a software company. And I was like, oh,
mm,
because I mean, I'm from Tennessee. I live in the valley, but I see posts from friends from high school that say, why does California think it's so special? And so I have that imposter syndrome, right? Grew up on a tobacco farm, and now I do much differently scaled things here. Um, but helping other people realize their zones of genius, I think we did learn things in our corporate careers that are helpful. And I see a lot of small business owners kind of shrugging their shoulders and saying, what Lisa knows won't fit what I do, because Lisa works on really big things, and I have, and I think that's imposter syndrome saying, no, 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 you don't understand my doggy daycare. You probably had no experience with the doggy daycare prior to doing that program. But it's the critical thinking that we have about how to look at the customer, how to make
mhm,
sure processes and systems talk with each other, to make sure that things that can be automated and repeatable are.
mhm,
But there's a way to do it. I believe that there's a big shift coming. I've made that clear, as AI automates more and more. But I believe
mhm,
there's such value for people like you and me to go out into the rest of the world. I just coached an extremely senior person, from one of the FANG companies, last week, and I told her, I said, go
mhm,
be a CEO of a CPG company, or a clothing retail company. Get out of tech and apply your skills there, because of
mhm,
everything you do will be remarkable. It will be a different
mhm,
framework of helping them elevate and scale. And I believe there is so much value with what we can do, but all change comes back to the people challenge, to working with people and keeping people whole in the process so that they are involved, communicated with, and satisfied that they have the strengths to move it forward when you step away from the project. So that's why I
Yeah,
think that.
that's where the
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that's where like the true magic works, right? Is when it sticks.
Yes.
It's when the changes actually stick and the habits change. And um,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's when they get some aha moments and I can do this, or I
Mm.
can't, even when we get the habit to stick and they kind of think back of like, why were we doing it that way for so long? Those are kind of the fun moments that, bring me joy too of like, okay, we're making progress here. We've made a few changes. Um, I think that like uh, the technical piece, the AI, I mean, and I think you've said this, is that it can be really scary. And
Mhm.
how do we make AI and technology not scary and usable? So it's not about completely taking the place. It's about how do we use it so that we can um, use AI appropriately and where it makes sense. But AI can't, connect the dots physically in the doggy daycare, right? Like that still needs a human person to say, when you walk over here to check someone in and then walk over there to print something out, like they're two disconnected processes that we need to figure out how they work together.
Right. Right. For what it's worth, my brain is racing with things you can do in a doggy daycare around location, sensors.
Yeah.
And and we realize we can't go full on with every single project, right? We have to tailor to the culture and the readiness for scale. What level is the customer ready to go to?
Yep.
You talked about you have a philosophy around small changes, and I think of you as small
Mhm.
changes, big impact. How did that small changes philosophy develop for you?
I think it's really just been, uh, I wish I could say like, August 17th is when I decided to start thinking this way, but I think it's just been, I'm an avid runner, and
Mhm.
so I've ran a few half marathons and I've done some, long distance swims. And it's that, I print out the training and you start out with just 3 miles a day or 3 miles, and then 2 miles, you have this whole schedule.
I love it.
And you cross them off and all of a sudden you're doing 12 miles and you're doing the race. And so it's just, it almost doesn't feel like it's hard work. You're just kind of, making 1 mile, adding 1 mile every so often. And so I think it's really been organic from kind of those pieces of my life that have trickled down into, also my, change resistance of like, okay, I can't change it all. Like I can't overhaul everything, but I
Mhm.
bet if I
Mhm.
did this one thing and make it stick, then I can do the next. And so, um, and I've just brought that to small businesses, and I think it came from corporate. I probably could, dive deep into my brain and find some times where I made a small but impactful piece. But when you're dealing with the clients that I have, they don't have the bank account to do overhauls and to stop, kind of
Mhm.
the work that's going on. And so you do have to find kind of creative ways to make changes that don't necessarily
Mhm.
up, like uproot their whole business pieces. And
Right.
so, and again, just going back to like making it stick. So if it is gonna, changing one thing is a lot easier than changing everything. And you can eventually, you kind of, when
Mhm.
we do the analysis, we kind of we take all the pain points, we're looking at it from like the 10,000 view, and we're saying, where are we going to get the most out of our efforts, right? Like, is
Right.
this one the biggest problem, or is this the biggest problem? Or is this the biggest impact problem? Because it might be a really big
Yeah.
problem, but like the impact is really low. And so why tackle that one? So it is just, those are things, again, I'll go back, like AI can't figure that out, right? Like AI
Mm-hmm.
can't figure it out yet anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So you need that relationship between the client and myself to really make those decisions and find out where we should, put the work.
Agreed. I love the way you drew the comparison to your personal transformation and the parallel to business transformation. You're a runner, amazing,
Hmm.
and a swimmer. And so you talked about developing those plans that had you do incremental shifts in your routines to get to the level of a marathon. Um, how do you get businesses to see the value and similar approaches to crawl, walk, run, to starting
Hmm.
small? Do you have a story you'd like to share about how you helped a client understand the value of something that seemed small but led to much longer horizon impact?
Yeah, gosh, there's like a few.
Yeah, yeah,
And I
I'm
think that
sure.
there's like, you could go from, one stream to the other. I had a client that was just fed up, ready to pull, they were pulling all their hair, and, they were ready just to like, they were going to put a pause on it. So they, um, did e-commerce, and they were like, I'm going to stop all orders. I'm going to stop everything because I need to
Wow.
like redo this whole thing. Um,
Okay.
and then I could give you an example where someone said, like, I think we're good. It's painful, but like, it's okay. Like,
We'll
I'll
just
just deal
live
with
with
it.
it
Yeah.
makes me think of the Holy Grail, just a flesh wound, and his arms like flailing off. So, but you don't
Yeah. So you
operate it.
could,
It's just a flesh wound. I can't beat that leg.
well, yeah, we'll just live without it. It's fine.
Yeah.
And so I think I think in both cases, it plays on a lot of my soft skills, because I think, how do you
Yes.
change someone that doesn't really want to change, and
Yes.
show
There's a
them
lot
that,
of
like,
that.
hey, yeah, how do we do that to where it's like the other side is like, whoa, hold down, like, we can keep the orders going, like, let's
Yeah.
really think about this.
Hmm.
And so I think it is like, um it really depends on the person. It's building that relationship of trust. It is, sometimes leaning in to say, I've seen this before and this is how we got through it. Like, kind of
Hmm.
giving them that expert advice, uh, or saying like, we're in it together. So like, if it doesn't work, we'll continue to work on it. I think there's never that ideal client where you're like, oh, I'm going to go in and it's going to be, super easy and they'll just follow my methodologies and it'll be super quick and away we go. Uh, But I think when businesses can see that small shift. So whether you're ready to pull your hair out and, stop your business versus like, you're going to continue on, even though you're really clunking along, it's really figuring out what their business is. And a lot of times it's, I have a data mindset. I think about data differently. For one individual, they were doing all their communications by hand. So they would sit on their couch and text every night, their
Oh
clients the
my.
next day.
No.
And then, and text, the
Hmm.
clients that they already had and say, hey, can you fill out this, survey and schedule your next appointment and all this. And so I just said, like, how long do you think that takes you? A week? And it was like, 5+ hours. It depends if the client texted back right
Yes.
away and they had to like converse back and forth. And her appointments were only like an hour and a half to 2 hours. And I was like, okay, so if you're spending 8 hours, that's 4 clients. Like, you can't scale if you're
Mhm.
spending that time
Yes.
with communications. And I
Okay.
think that was like the aha moment where she's like, oh, whatever, I'm just watching TV, I'm just
Right.
sitting
But
on my
no.
couch. It's not
Hmm.
really, taken away from anything.
But it is.
And, but it's taking away your energy. It's taking away
Yes.
time that you could be with your family or, like
Hmm.
those things that really bring you joy.
Hmm.
And so I think it's just like, it can be that small of like, this is how many clients you're unable to have, or this is what the income is coming in, that
Hmm.
can really make a profound difference. And we ended
Yeah.
up putting, as a fairly easy, some, automation in that,
Hmm.
that basically went from her calendar to her clients and back again and had
That's
a
right.
calendar that her clients could schedule themselves. So she wasn't
Hmm.
scheduling it anymore.
Hmm. Yeah.
So it can be, I think maybe that's it, is like, it's the easy way to go. If you can show them one easy thing, then they're
Yeah.
more, you know, adapt to keep coming with me on the journey.
Yeah. And in the example you just gave, what immediately flashed in my mind was that wasn't just an advantage for her to get out of her couch scheduling at night, but it was an improvement for her customers to see, for them to have some agency in the process, because she could care less if John moves from Tuesday to Thursday. But for
Yeah.
John to be able to do that on his own and it be done and not require the back and forth, those are
Oh, yeah.
tiny changes with big impact on both sides.
Mhm.
And
Well,
I
yeah, I
do,
probably wouldn't have rescheduled. If I was John, I wouldn't have rescheduled because I would have been like, oh, gosh, I'll just keep it as Tuesday.
yeah. Or I'll just cancel and do this another time,
Mhm.
right? Rather
Mhm.
than,
Yeah,
because
that's true.
the friction cause friction in the process. Um,
Mhm.
causes loss of interest, loss of engagement, and those things are so easy for people like us to see and automate, but other people, like you said earlier, that are in their flow, in their process, and especially when they've convinced themselves, I'm just sitting on the couch with the kids watching TV before we go to bed. It's only a couple hours a night. But,
Mhm.
it's not just that couple of hours, it's the energy. So, I love it.
Yep.
I was also thinking we had an interesting conversation when we talked earlier about you use ChatGPT as a thought partner.
Mhm. Yep.
And, I do too. ChatGPT is the first thing I say hello to when I wake up. Uh, ChatGPT or Claude, depending on what I'm doing.
Mhm.
But I love that you use an LLM as a thought partner. For me, the biggest transition in going from corporate leader, from corporate leader to uh, entrepreneur was the lack of a team to brainstorm with. Not
Mhm.
not having people immediately at hand to collaborate on approaches with. So, how are you helping with regard to ChatGPT, Claude, whatever LLM suits you best for your needs? How are you helping small businesses think about AI and using things as simple as ChatGPT without it being a threat?
That's a really good question. It is done tiptoeing. I think because there is this scare as people have, is that it's going to eliminate people or businesses or
Yeah.
it. um, And I think that showing them examples within their industry is really helpful to say, like, mm, you know, I use ChatGPT for a wide range of things,
Oh,
right? So I think when you start showing some ideas of that in their sector, or that's, those pain points, um, I think, I've only had one client that's really been receptive to AI as a thought partner, as a assistant. Um, and it, they were, again, it's like that perfect client, right? They're on the edge. They know it. They know what's happening. How can I kind of be
mhm.
with it versus be
Yeah.
against it? And it is being about intentional, right? So again, they're a creative person. They see themselves as like, they don't want Chat GPT to take away the creative. And I was like, well, it doesn't have to. You don't have to ask it to take away your creative part. It's like, let's take away some of these admin parts that are not,
Mhm.
using they're draining you, like let's use Chat GPT on things that drain you versus like what you brings you joy. Um, and so I think as it evolves, as I evolve, as the solutions evolve, I think AI will definitely be a part of those. Um, but I think they'll, be different in how it evolves. And so it's just being intentional, I think, on how you use it and
Yeah.
how your clients use it.
Yeah. It's one thing to use an LLM as a thought partner. And you and I are probably wired from the get go to do that because, we like tools. That's just how we're wired.
Mhm.
It's another thing to get, people who aren't wired that way to use it as an ongoing thought partner. But I feel certain that you have, you've got a technical and automation background. So I just can't imagine that you haven't implemented baby AI frameworks within the
Yeah.
small businesses that you've had with limited resources, right?
After I leave, how could they continue the evolution of their business? Because that's one thing, that I've tried to say, like, and this is ongoing. This isn't just like a one and done. Otherwise, you're gonna like call me back in
Yep.
5 to 7 years and say, okay, the systems are, legacy
Mhm.
now. We need new ones. And so maybe by just uh, using it as that thought partner is like, how do I integrate this, or how do I automate? There's so many cool I say toys, they're really tools. But there's so many tools out there that you could ask ChatGPT is, I'm working in Google. How do I make an automation
Mhm.
for my calendar invite, right? How do I and it will give you step by step pieces. It will give you probably two suggestions, right?
Mhm.
Here's how you can no code it, and here's how you can code it. And so so that if you don't even know what code is, you can still implement it just as easy. So
Yeah.
I'm, I think that's where ChatGPT or, an assistant would be helpful. And there's so many now. I feel like anything
There
you
are.
open up now, there's an assistant for that, right?
Mhm.
It's so I do think there's benefit in it. Um, I think it's just creating that relationship with the client to say like, um, here's how you could use it. And then I'm almost thinking, Tanya, as we're talking, like there's almost this, if we go way back in our conversation about imposter syndrome,
Yeah.
like I think that there is like if I use AI, I'm cheating almost thought, like, and I think that's the narrative we have to kind of get over is like, you're not cheating. Everyone, it's like everyone else is doing it. Like you might as well be on the curve or trying to get, beyond the curve. And so there might be some way I can incorporate that with my clients too.
I think that's important. Humans are arrogant. We want to think that we can and should do everything. Um, and it is a mindset shift to recognize the value of power tools. I grew up on a farm. I can
Yeah.
make a hole in a piece of wood with an awl, an AWL with an
Mhm.
awl, and it will take me hours. Or I can get my power drill out and
Mhm.
I can make a precision hole inside of 5 seconds. So why
Mhm.
would I grind and toil with an awl to make the same hole that I can do in 5 seconds with a power tool? Nobody thinks that's cheating. They think that's being smart.
Right.
I grew up with a set of World Book encyclopedias. Read, there must have been 20,
Mhm.
25 volumes because they were by alphabet. And I was a nerd. I read through those, and that was my research. And it didn't matter that they were 10 or 15 years
Outdated.
old. It was what I had
Mhm.
at home to research with. I don't think anybody today looks at using the internet to find out things they don't know, to do research. So I 100% identify with what you're saying about it. Feels like it's not my work if I'm enlisting the help of an AI tool. But we got to get past that, because to me, it's just like from all to power drill and from World Book encyclopedias to, for years, it's just been search and more regular search. You and I know there are AI components embedded in the search process, but still, it hasn't been consumer grade LLMs in use until just recently. But still, this is just, I think, our next evolution of how do we work. As a sidebar, I taught a course at a university in San Francisco to the graduate school faculty, and it was all about them changing their methodology for assessing student learning. Now, I'm not a student learning expert. That's not my background. It's not what I do, but it was more about opening dialogue with the faculty over the course of a day about how we are shifting as a population. And you can imagine how faculty looks at students using AI tools as it's not their work, but it is. Yeah. It's just like using a calculator. It's just like using, the internet instead of the World Book encyclopedias. And the faculty senate wanted me to teach this course with an angle on we have to change our curriculums and the way we measure students, because student output, the value and contribution of student learning, will be using AI tools. And so we have to shift the paradigm from rote learning to experiential learning, which AI very much supports. So fascinating discussions, but this is all a mindset shift, because I feel the same way. I sometimes engage a couple of different LLMs on my LinkedIn pieces. I could take 4 hours to write something brilliant, or I can work with an ALM and knock it out in 20 minutes. And it's more important that I get, and everything is mine. I could go on and on about how you get from an LLM what you put into it. You ask it what color the sky is, it will tell you blue. But if you embellish, the conversation, the creativity you deploy is what helps you get to an 80% response with an AI. But it very much is, I think, a shift for us to not think of it as it's not my work and it feels inauthentic. But it's not. It's wholly you. What were you about to say?
Yeah, I was just thinking, it's just like, we still have to be critical thinkers, right? We still have to take the
100%.
content. I mean, that's anywhere, right? So if I read your LinkedIn post, I still am thinking critically about like what you're posting, but I'm not thinking, I wonder if she created this or not. It's not like, and so I think that that's with any, social media or any text. I mean, even when we were doing research projects, we always had to have it couldn't just be from any.com. It had to be from, a specific government or universities or whatever. So I still think we have some boundaries around it, right? We still are critical thinkers of what, these machine learners like spit out. And so I think that's still where it's going to be, right? Like, as we still have to balance that and have boundaries around it of like, and I'm not going to put anything out there, right? Like, I'm not going to just like ask ChatGPT to make me a post and post it, and it has nothing to do with me, right? Like, still,
it's not my voice.
It's still representing of me, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So yeah, I just think if we continue to be critical thinkers, AI can really be a benefit. And I do on occasion will look at pictures with my kids and be like, do you think this is real or do you think this is not real? And just trying to show them. And I've done my own, photocopying or photoshopping myself, in different places. Yeah. And so I show them like, hey, this is mom and this is mom, even though it's the same mom and there's different backgrounds, right? Like, just so that they're thinking like, not everything I see is real, right? Like, it can be photoshopped and AI generated. And so I think there is some learning around it too, about how to be critical thinkers.
Agreed.
So, I mean, time will tell, right? If
Yeah.
what we're saying
Yes, it will.
today is
Yes, it will.
if it lasts 1 year, 5 years.
I heard someone interview really early on in this generative AI journey, and he spoke about how most humans will think they are smarter than the technology and look no further than when a mapping application tells us how to get somewhere that we've already been. And we're like,
Mhm.
no, 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 that's not the fastest route. Oh, no, no, I never take 3rd Street. I always go down Sacramento Avenue. And how often when we second guess technology, we're absolutely wrong. And it's and I had this experience a week ago. I was going to see a friend for lunch, and it had me taking this weird route. And I was like, maybe there's a wreck on the interstate. And I looked ahead and the line wasn't red. And I was like, this is just being flaky. This is no, no, no. This is because it had me going this way out of the way, smaller streets loop instead of just heading down the highway. Sure enough, there was tree trimming. And I I was 30 minutes late to lunch. And I was like, and it was just another one of those where I was like, I thought I was smarter than the technology. And I just dismissed the technology as, they don't know. And had I just taken that side street, I would have been to lunch on time. Instead,
Right.
that I was quite late, and I was thankful it was a friend. uh, but still, I think we do try to second guess things that we need to let do the work for us,
Mhm.
right? So anyway, all interesting. I want to move back to some personal reflection. You you are a private business owner. You're a mom. You're a runner. You travel. So how do you balance all those things? Because they're all important to you. None are a sidebar. So, your company name has True North in it, and I love that. And you seem to really have line of sight on your true north. So what's your wisdom for our audience about balancing all those things that are important to you?
Gosh, I wish I had the magic sauce. Yeah, True North is really, you know, it, we spend a lot of time on the water and it just really resonated with me. And I think when I think about my True North um, is all those things, but I'm really picky. I
Mhm.
do not say yes to everything. I say no a lot if it doesn't
Yeah.
align with what I'm working towards or who I am, my personal values and it changes. So, what I say no to, this season might be different than next season. Mm, And so the advice I give is, is always like looking inside yourself, right? Like reflecting on yourself. Mm, my sister uh, has always told me to journal a lot and I've always ignored
Mhm.
her.
Yeah. I
And
I have the
I
same.
think that's
I have so many journals I've bought to, like, I love paper and pens, but then I just don't stick
yeah.
with it. So keep going because
Uh,
I really want to hear about this journaling thing
yeah.
because I've ignored it as well.
So I wouldn't say I've been journaling, but I have been reflecting, which I think is
Good.
very much
Good.
the basis of journaling. And um and so I've been really just reflective on my interactions and the things that I've done. And um I'll kind of go off on a little tangent here as I go running in the mornings with my neighbor mom friends, and we have
I love
this
that.
kind of saying of tacos or pickles, like I love tacos. I love, thinking about what kind of tacos I'm going to make for dinner, or even after the fact, I think, gosh, those were such good tacos we made. And so that's the feeling that I want. And so if whenever we're making decisions or whenever I'm like at a crossroads, I think, okay, is this going towards the tacos or is it going towards the fried pickles that I hate and makes me cringe and I, can't even think about it. But because it's kind of just this little silly thing, but So when I'm reflecting on things though, that feels tangible, right? Like
Yeah.
I tangibly can eat some tacos. Does that make me feel the same way? And if it doesn't, then I say no to it or I try to limit it or um because I do have, the priorities and there's only so much time in the day. Uh, and I'm just really focused on making sure that the things that I want to get done, I do.
Wow. I mean, I love that you use discernment and being very intentional to
Hmm.
make choices, to make every choice, because it's those little things that we get stuck in that take us that cost us our energy, that we lose time
Hmm.
on. Um, I think that making the transition from corporate to private business owner is a tremendous transition that requires that kind of intentional thinking, because things will dramatically change. Um, and there's so many gaps when you leave behind a business that is set up to serve you doing your best work. So when you think about how you have gone about being intentional, reflecting, what advice would you give along those lines to people who are, because there's many of them out there that listen to this. What advice would you give them about how to contemplate and make decisions about their corporate transition or exit, to be frank, um, that's coming for a lot of us?
Hmm. It might sound cliche, but I do think it is that reflection of who you are, a mood board or a Pinterest board.
Mhm.
Like those are, even just a simple scrap of paper, what are your tacos?
Mm.
How are you going to get there? Um, and I think it's just starting. I think that's the hardest part is just like
Just get
do
started.
one,
Yeah.
yep, just get started. Try one small thing, one small experiment. Did it lead you to tacos? If it didn't, then try something
Mhm.
else. If I think we're lucky with the technology that we have today and that you can do a lot of things that don't take a big investment of time or energy
Yeah.
that you could, you know, um, but you could do a lot of things. But if you just kind of reflect in yourself and say, what is your true north and stick with it. And I think the other things start to fall in place as soon as you're kind of going north, the other pieces kind of fall in place and um, the things that weren't causing you joy, you soon kind of get rid of those. Um, at least that's what I hope for everyone that's listening is I feel like the more I've been true to myself, the more true things come.
Yes. Agreed. And and it feels cliche because it's been said before,
Hmm.
but that doesn't make it wrong. It's, I
Right.
mean, just it is being ready to apply the wisdom that everyone around us shares. I think you've probably had this experience, but some of my biggest aha moments were embarrassing because it's like the universe has been telling me this for 2 years, and I've just
Yeah.
not been ready
Hmm.
to apply what I've heard. And so there's nothing wrong with comments that feel cliche, because they're not. They are gathered wisdom from others who have succeeded and then from your own success. And I think that they eventually reach people to help them have that same aha moment of, I've been hearing this for
Hmm.
2 years. And
Yeah.
and I too can benefit from this and do this. So, thank you.
Mhm.
So,
And it's
looking
not
ahead.
just like done, right? Like it's
Oh,
like in
no,
6 months, do it again, do it
that's right.
again.
Get used to the
It's
constant iteration.
iterative. Yeah. Constant change and even things try again. Something didn't work 2 years ago when you said, I'm
Good
gonna
point.
try it, I'm gonna
Very
leave
good
my
point.
corporate job. But things have changed in 2 years or six
Mhm.
months. and maybe try it again. Maybe it's a better time to try again.
Yeah. 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 I love that. And especially it might not have been the time 18 months ago,
Mhm.
but so much has changed in industry and with people that we work with that it's okay to resubmit an idea forward in your mind
Yeah.
if it feels like now might be the time.
Yeah.
So,
And it
what's
aligns to your true north.
which leads me to what's your vision for True North? Where do you think you want to take it?
Yeah. I probably should have this answer like down pat because I do ask my
Uh-huh.
clients this, but I think that I want to continue to bring joy to myself, to have that always learning mentality and then bringing, the efficiencies to small businesses and scaling businesses. I think if I continue to do that, I would continue to say that I am being successful, allowing for others just to be able to do what they want. And, it's kind of like a win-win, right? Like I get to do what I want and they get to do what they want.
Mhm.
And so I hope that continues for many years to come. And if not, that's okay, right? That's what we've been talking about is
That's
it's
right.
okay to pivot and change and try something new. And so I'm really open as long as I'm headed my true north and going to the tacos. Um, I think I'm going to be happy and I've found a way to, work, but that aligns with my values and my, um, travel commitments.
Yes.
And so I hope that continues as well.
I love the tacos and pickles. I will
Mhm.
borrow that. It's a great way of done. Where can listeners find out more about you or get in touch with True North if they'd like to work with you?
Yeah, truenorthpmsolutions.com is my
I'll use that.
website. I'm also on LinkedIn, both myself and True North PM Solutions. And my email is also on all those uh, um,
Mhm.
social media. So uh, please reach out and we can talk about tacos or, other places that bring joy to get you back to your true north.
I love it. And I so appreciate the time today there's been a lot of wisdom, but I think there's also been a lot of assurance. Assurance
Mm.
for people that this isn't necessarily magic and it's not um you don't have to make it bigger than it is. Just make small
Mhm.
steps and make progress toward what you want. And it feels cliche when I say it, but my goodness, we all struggle with it. So I think it's
Yeah.
relevant to talk about it and show people examples like yours where it has really turned out beautifully. So everyone, this is Reset, where purpose meets possibility. And this has been a wonderful conversation with Lisa Talbot, a project management expert who traded in her corporate playbook for a mission to help small businesses breathe. Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for joining us on Reset. Remember, transformation is a journey, not a destination. So until next time, keep exploring what's possible. I'm Tanya Long, and this is Home. This is Reset.